Hospice care is a vital service that dates back many centuries, and in more recent times has become a structured collective of supportive activities that provide comfort care in the final months of a patient's life. Its value to a patient and their family cannot be overstated, and volunteers report that they too find the experience rewarding. The Bedford Hospice House opened in 2017 with 4 beds, a full-time nurse, and meal delivery. The team now includes many care team members providing comprehensive support.
First of all, thank you for being a hospice volunteer. I want to tell you a little bit about the spiritual care part of providing care in hospice. In hospice, we believe in whole person care, and that includes the mind, body, and spirit. And in fact, the earliest hospice organizations began out of a recognition that we are having a spiritual experience with medical and physical implications, because end of life causes us to reflect on our beliefs, our sense of meaning and purpose. And so it can be a time when people start to question and wonder and reflect in ways that sometimes are very helpful and sometimes cause some stress and some tension. So our spiritual care providers, our chaplains, are all specially trained to work with people not only at end of life, but who are experiencing any sort of a health crisis and how that affects their sense of being and their sense of faith. We work with people of all faith and no faith. We work within the parameters of their tradition to provide them the care that they need. Not all hospice patients accept spiritual care services, but we are required as part of our Medicare conditions of participation to do a comprehensive assessment within the first 5 days. In that assessment, we try to discover what the spiritual resources are for strength. We also try to assess for any potential barriers for a peaceful death, because what we want to do is provide what's most meaningful for people at the end of their life. What we ask of you as volunteers is, if you are working with patients and families, if you hear things that make you wonder if you should call a chaplain, the answer is yes. Call us. We are happy to go out and assess or reassess if we've already assessed them and not picked up on something that now they're working with. We're happy to go, and even if they have declined services before, sometimes they are more receptive to it as their journey continues. So a question that sometimes comes up from volunteers is it okay to pray with a patient? And the answer is, if they ask you, absolutely, it is okay, and if you are comfortable doing so. But if you have any discomfort with that, if you have any doubts about whether or not you feel it's appropriate, contact one of the chaplains. We'll be happy to help and walk you through whatever you might need. We have people who are from a variety of faith traditions, and if it's not one that you're familiar with, it may not be very comfortable for you to pursue that. We would also ask, if they ask you to read scripture, try to use the scripture that they have available to them, and that way you're going to increase your opportunity to honor and respect their traditions. One of the questions that we get asked is, how are we trained as chaplains? And the answer to that is, we each have a minimum of a Master's of Theology or Divinity degree. In addition to that, we do specialized clinical pastoral education, and that puts us in a position to work towards our competencies and become board certified, which all of our chaplains are in hospice. We are required, following that certification, to complete 50 hours at a minimum of continuing education every year. And we try to focus that in areas that will provide us better opportunities to grow and develop our skills in working with people at end of life. So we're always interested in working with you. You are a first set of eyes and ears sometimes with people when they let their guards down and they're not thinking in terms of a clinical situation that they're in. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you're having a hard time working with somebody because you're finding yourself very emotionally attached to them, our chaplains are also available to provide support to you and to the staff.
An interdisciplinary team of medical professionals, social workers, therapists, chaplains, and volunteers work closely with the patient and the patient's family to provide supportive care.
Hi, my name is Erica Worley. I'm the social work manager with Central Hospice. I'm going to speak with you a little bit about the social work program within hospice and the services that we offer and the supports we provide, not only to our patients and families that we serve, but also these supports are available to our staff and our volunteers. So the social workers become involved upon admission. So within 5 days of a patient entering into hospice care, the social worker goes to the home and we complete what is a comprehensive assessment. And in that assessment, we are looking for goals for care. We're looking for barriers to care. We're wanting to identify what the patient and family are looking for, or maybe what they don't know they're looking for with regards to end of life. We work very collaboratively with the family and the patient to identify what the plan of care will look like. We set a visit frequency accordingly. We do not always maintain a visit frequency with patients and families after the initial intake. There are patients and families who may feel that they have supports in place and they do not feel that there's going to be a benefit from an ongoing social work visit frequency. So sometimes we meet people once. And sometimes we see them weekly or 2 to 3 times a month throughout the duration of their hospice journey. So with regards to some of the tasks that social work frequently oversee, we do a lot of help and referrals for resources. We help with just sometimes basic needs aren't met, so we make referrals within the community to help with food, with the logistics of paying bills or unmet needs. We help a lot with funeral planning, with the preparations for that. We do a lot of coordination and collaboration and trying to help introduce that conversation. That is oftentimes a very difficult conversation for patients and families to facilitate. The third piece that we really focus a lot on is the emotional support, providing that clinical counseling and support to the patients and families. Oftentimes, we facilitate family meetings and therapy sessions with patients individually, with patients and family members, or with larger groups, just to kind of help navigate the end-of-life process and some of the obstacles that come up, the frustrations, and just the enormous amount of emotions that kind of erupt when you're dealing with end of life. The social work team is a very large team. Presently, we have 16, so we travel a lot, and we spend a lot of time in patients' homes and on the road. The social work team is also one of the core disciplines that's 24/7. So we're on call after hours at night, primarily for patients and families who may have an emergent need. In hospice, we do a lot of suicide risk assessments, and we kind of help to navigate that. We do a lot of safety planning and working with patients and caregivers if there is concern for suicidal or homicidal ideation. The social work team is a very unique team. So we are all MSWs clinical level. We do have a few undergraduates who were grandfathered in, but the regulatory guidelines for hospice do require a master's level in social work because the majority of the work that is done is clinical. So providing that clinical counseling and that support to the patients and families. We do also have some individuals who have some special certifications with geriatrics and end of life. The social work team plays a very unique role in the interdisciplinary team. So we introduce the patients in our care team meetings, and we try to also support not only our patients and families, but our care our other care team members within the interdisciplinary team. So that also goes to the volunteers. Oftentimes our volunteers will be in the homes, and you guys may see, hear, or observe things that can be difficult. So the social work team's available to help process that, to be able to talk through that. I share with you one of the things that you oftentimes will encounter in your unique role as a volunteer is, being privy to getting or obtaining information from patients and families that maybe the care team wasn't aware of. So I encourage you to always communicate very openly with your volunteer coordinator or with myself, the social work manager, or reaching out to the social worker directly. There will be times that you may obtain information that you think needs to be passed on, and we want you to pass that on. We want you to share that. Sometimes patients and families aren't as comfortable or as relaxed with the actual staff members, and they may not open up, and the volunteer may get more information, and that can go for hearing something that's concerning. You may pick up that a patient is voicing that they are having thoughts of harming themselves. So in the event that you are hearing that, we want you to be reaching out to the manager or your volunteer coordinator so that we can help navigate that, and just being able to help you process.
In addition to their physical and medical needs, hospice care focuses on the emotional, social, and spiritual needs of a dying person and that person's family. Nursing and supportive care are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on an on-call basis. Care is directed at managing pain and other symptoms so that the patient can be as alert as possible and therefore enhancing their quality of life through positive interaction with family and loved ones. The safety of our patients, staff, and volunteers is of paramount importance. In your packet of materials are specific guidelines for you to become familiar with and keep as a reference. Additionally, there are forms related to confidentiality, background checks, and a disclosure statement. Thank you for your attention to these important procedures. Our social worker team handles details related to hospice benefit periods, level of care, advanced directives, DNR directives, abuse and neglect, and transportation.
So our bereavement program at hospice is not only for just our hospice patients and families that we serve, it's also open to the community. So we service a large number of bereaved individuals within our program and within the community. For patients and family members who are served by Centra Hospice, we follow them for 13 months. So what that looks like is monthly telephone calls, check-ins. We do a series of mailings offering support. We also do a series of support groups throughout the year that we advertise to our bereaved and also to the community. So we run an average of 6 groups per year. We separate those groups out between all 3 of our business units. So they're in Lynchburg, Bedford, and Farmville. And on average, we have really good attendance to these groups. Our bereavement program is really focused on providing the support to loved ones as they go on their grief journey. Everyone's grief journey is very unique. Our bereavement team is made up of licensed counselors and also licensed clinical social workers. We also, in addition to the support groups, we do memorial services here in hospice. So our Lynchburg unit is our largest unit. So every 2 months we hold a memorial service in our Lynchburg office where we recognize the patients that we lost over the last 2 months. And this is an opportunity that's really unique. We send invitations to the patients' family members and we invite them to come back, and it's a time to reconnect with the staff that took care of their loved one. We do a video tribute at the memorial services where families are encouraged, if they want to submit a photograph of their loved one, we then put that into a video tribute at the end. So our memorial services are a great opportunity for patients and families to reconnect, and then to also extend that invitation into the bereavement services over the next 13 months that they can access. We oftentimes see that initially following the death, immediately patients and families, they're not ready. We tend to get the most calls around the 4 to 6 month mark, where patients and families are really starting to kind of feel that grief and looking for ways to kind of work through that. We do a lot of collaboration with Kids Haven as well for families who maybe had small children in the home. We collaborate and make those referrals. We do only serve individuals 18 and older within our bereavement program. So anyone who's under the age of 18, we will make referrals out. So our bereavement program is also one of the largest programs within hospice that utilizes volunteers. As I spoke about earlier, we have about 7 different mailings that go out over the course of 13 months. So the volunteers are instrumental in helping us get those mailings out. So on average, we service about roughly 1,000 patients at any given moment who are active to our bereavement program between all 3 of our business units. So our mailings are done. There's a mailing that's going out at least twice a month. So we really count on and rely on our volunteers to help us with processing those mailings and getting those out. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, and our bereavement program could not operate without our volunteers' hands and the hours put in.
It may surprise many people to learn that 25% of those who die every year in the U.S. are veterans. Centra Hospice is a national partner of We Honor Veterans, a pioneering campaign developed by the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization in collaboration with the Department of Veterans Affairs. As a We Honor Veterans partner, Centra Hospice provides ongoing veteran-centered education for the staff and volunteers to help improve the care they provide. The resources of We Honor Veterans focuses on respectful inquiry, compassionate listening, and grateful acknowledgement. America's veterans have proudly served their country. It's time we step up and fulfill our mission of serving those men and women with the level of dignity they deserve.
My name is David Kinzer. I live in Lynchburg, and I volunteer out of Bedford. And I've been a volunteer for about a year. My wife and I actually volunteer together, although I do kind of a different thing than she does. And I guess you might be interested in how I got started in this. I went with my wife a couple of times. We just happened to be in the area. And she said, I'm going to stop by and see my patient. You want to come? And so I did. And I was very impressed at her heart, quite frankly, and how she dealt with the patients and how she cared for them. Never did I dream, really, that I would be involved in the hospice program, but I guess a few months later, she asked if, Angela asked if I would be involved, like to be involved in the VA program, veterans program, where they do a ceremony and a pinning. And I said, well, you know, let me, I'll do that. So I went one, and I was very impressed with how it went. I went through the necessaries of becoming a volunteer, some of the training and so forth, and really got interested in it. So I went with Angela. It was just Angela and myself the first time, and we had a ceremony, and we must have stayed there about an hour with the folks. It's something that's really hard to describe. When you're a veteran and you meet a veteran and you're pinning a veteran, you're having a ceremony, it's just something special. That the camaraderie that's there, you just kind of bond with that person. And I have experienced that before, but this is something different. it's very ingratiating, and it means a lot. So I've done 3 or 4 of these, and every one of them are different, but yet they're the same. And I have met with other people other than veterans. Angela called me not too long ago and asked me to meet with a man in Big Island, which I did. And you know, in sitting with this gentleman, about 2 hours that I spent, and he and I sat there and watched old westerns. It was a lot of fun, and we also had a bond. Although he wasn't a veteran, it didn't make any difference. And each week when I go to see him, I really look forward to going to see him. He's a neat guy, and so that's my experience. It's hard to put into words how it makes you feel, but I feel that in doing this, I'm giving back some of what I've been blessed with. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I'm Judy Kinzer, David's wife. I've been a hospice volunteer for a little over 5 years now. And about 7 years ago, my mother became very ill and was in the hospital in Charlottesville. And it became necessary to find care for her since the doctor said she was near the end of her life, and they gave us a choice of a nursing home, taking her home, or hospice care. And as my sister and I were in the hallway talking back and forth about we want to take her home, but could it really be managed? It was entirely different than it had been because she was completely now dependent on someone for all of her needs. A nurse was walking by and said, girls, you need to ask yourself, do you want to be caregivers or do you want to be daughters again? I said, I want to be a daughter. And she said, then I would choose hospice care. That's the first I really became initiated into what hospice was really about. And so Mother, we took her to a hospice house up in Charlottesville, Virginia. And she was there for 3 months before she passed away, and it was just unbelievable that I didn't have to worry about pills, I didn't have to worry about buying the groceries, cooking the meals, cleaning the house, all of that stuff, as well as being with my mother. And all those things were taking away from the time I could be with my mother. So while I was in hospice, I could sit with her, we could talk, tell stories, I'd read to her, we'd watch television, visit, whatever. And for 3 months, I just have wonderful memories of just that time being with my mother. It was my mother, I was her daughter, and we could just have that together again. It was just a gift beyond description. And after I was back home, I had picked up a small local paper, and there was an article about how they needed hospice volunteers. Well, I cut it out, put it on my refrigerator, and it stayed there for about a year because I really wasn't ready to make that phone call. I just couldn't quite go there yet. And then one day I said, today's the day. So I became a hospice volunteer and have done many different jobs in hospice, working in the office, but mostly with the patients is what I really prefer and love. And have learned so much from these people. They're in their last days, and yet they are so kind and so gracious to invite you into this little time that they have left. And that always amazes me. They still have time in their heart to make a new friend. And it's such a generous spirit that I've encountered, almost 100%. So this has become, for me, part of my faith journey as well. I'm doing something not only that I want, but I need to do this. This is just part of my whole being, and I have gained more than I have ever been able to give, and I'm so excited to be able to share this with my husband of a little more than a year and a half, that we can share this together and walk this hospice life together. And I'm so grateful for everyone that I have met in hospice, and what I have seen them do to, and for the families, what I have seen them do, because I've been there, I've experienced it. It's beyond description, the gift that you are given, whether you're a patient or you're the patient's family. And I'm so glad to be part of that. Thank you.
I'm Sharon Cassidy. I was in nursing for many years. Always liked taking care of people, doing things for people. And I volunteered for hospice with Korean for a while. When they left and Centra took over, I signed up with Centra, and I've been with them now for 3 years. I just thoroughly enjoy being with the patients, doing things for them. There are so many things that you don't really think of when you're, well, you just don't think of the things that mean so much to these people who have nothing to do all day or whatever. And if you have just an hour or 30 minutes to go and sit with them and enjoy talking to them, like they said, just being with the patients and learning the people, it's amazing how they make you feel. And it's given back to the community. And this hospice house here is wonderful. It is amazing. And I know that the people in Bedford really worked really hard to get this place going, and it is amazing. You should come and look at it. You really should.
Yep.
The volunteers can do anything from house cleaning to helping patients with their meals, delivering meals here. Someone has to deliver the meals here every day.
And if
24/7. I mean, you know, it's every day of the week.
And if you don't care to work with patients, if that's not your thing, you've got office work, at the Bedford office, filing papers, computer work, so many different things. They are helping answer the phone from time to time. There's something there for everyone.
And for the last couple of years, we've done a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
In Bedford, and that's really
And
fun
make
to
cookies.
do. It makes money.
And we make
makes
cookies.
money for the hospice house, and it also, like she said, the cookie-a-thon. You'd be amazed at how even the families love the cookies at Christmas time.
Yeah, a lot of fun things.
A lot of fun things to
Celebrate
do.
birthdays with them.
Well, one of the important things that I've learned that you do with them is to give the caregivers a break.
Yeah.
They do this in some cases 24/7, and just give them a couple of case in point is what I was doing with this gentleman. His daughter and his wife were sitting with him all the time. He was pretty much bedridden. And so I would just go down there. They'd go to the store. They'd go and just have some free time for about 2 hours. And so I felt like that was a big plus in my life and theirs too.
Volunteers are unpaid staff, but have some of the same requirements as staff members, including being current on flu shots, TB testing, use of an official Centra ID badge, trained and competent to perform assigned duties, and annual reviews. Every new venture comes with a bit of trepidation, and having concerns is quite natural. For complaints, problems, or emergencies, contact your coordinator or home office. We value your volunteer service with grateful hearts and look forward to teaming with you in this important work.